Welcome, all you free-range junkers. It's Kari Christensen, your host, your pick and pal, and junkyard Jezebel. We're here to talk about long, delightful walks through the flea market, our best tips for repurposing or growing your vintage collection or business, and how we all respect the rust. All right, today we're going to share a story with you about another clean out we did of an estate that was by far one of the most interesting and unique experiences I think we've ever had, to the point that it just isn't even believable. I mean, we've had conversations where we tell people about this and they're like, you can't make this stuff up. You guys should write a book, which is kind of why we're doing a podcast. We thought it would be fun to share some of these stories and um, I don't know, just something to entertain ourselves in amongst our 12-hour work days, I guess. But we're going to share the story with you of a clean out we did here in our community. We had a younger woman come into our shop one day, and she asked us if we could help her because her relative had just passed away and she needed to get the house cleaned out so that they could sell the house. And anytime somebody comes to talk to us about something like that, we always say, well, we're happy to go take a look because you just never really know what is there until you see it with your own eyes. What we knew of the story was that the gentleman had passed away in the home and nobody had found him for a few weeks. So that in itself, there's your teaser. Gives you just a little idea of what we found when we walked into that house.
And of course, as it seems with every clean out or sale we have to do, it's just like, what's the time frame on it? Well, we need it done in about 2 weeks. So that one was another one where, we thought we could make it work. If I recall correctly, we were getting ready to go on a vacation or something.
And it was winter.
And it was winter, and we had like only 2 weeks left before we had to leave on this vacation. And we got to the house and walked in and we're like, oh my God.
So in addition to the compressed timeline with this one and just all of the strange and mystifying things that we found in the house, this turned out to be one of the most expensive cleanouts in history because it landed me in the hospital. But we'll get to that in a minute. So when we walked into the house, as Rick was saying, this was what style house would you call it? A bungalow, I guess, story and a half.
Story and a half, just
Story
a
and a
small
half.
story and a half.
So just a nondescript white Midwestern story and a half house. You walk in the front door and there is nowhere in there for a person to sleep other than maybe on the couch, which was covered in stuff. There wasn't a bed anywhere.
There wasn't anywhere to walk. It was paths. And this is after the family, if I remember right, had worked on it for a week or two and just they got so exhausted they couldn't do it. They didn't know where they had worked that far and they didn't know they hadn't made progress.
Yeah. They had a huge dumpster out front and they just were frustrated and they were looking for help. So we walked in, looked at the paths and went, holy smokes. Okay. There's just a lot of stuff in here. And there was everything just visually in that front room, from die-cast cars to piles of magazines to furniture to glassware to ceramics to
a fair amount of collectibles. I mean, you can see collectibles kind of scattered through there. And they had said they had someone there that we knew, another local businessman that kind of is a picker, I guess. I don't know. I won't get into it. I don't think he's a very good picker for what he left there. But anyway, but he had been there, I guess, once or twice to try to buy some stuff. And I'm not sure what he could have bought out of there because there was nothing missing that I could see.
Mm-hmm. No visible holes, but there was so much stuff in the house, you wouldn't have been able to really tell if there was a visible hole. So you walked in, you saw all this stuff in the living room, you turned right, you went into a hallway where there was 2 bedrooms on each end. One bedroom was packed to the brim with Legos and Duplo blocks. So Duplos, are those bigger ones that are more for like a toddler size, like 2 or 3-year-old or so. There were towers built out of these Duplo blocks.
Yeah, I was going to say, when she says packed, it's actually built up buildings, like little castles you could actually walk in. It's not just packed in there all over the place. They're like built buildings that he had in the one room.
Wild. I mean, I would guess when we cleaned that room out, how many banana boxes full of Duplos do you think we ended up selling? I would bet easily it was like 150 to 200.
I think it's over 200. We were selling them by the banana box by the end, and I think it was somewhere between 200 and 300 boxes of Duplo and Legos that we sold.
Nuts. Just nuts. So that was the one room. The other room was full of die cast, if I remember
Die-cast and
correctly.
baseball or sports cards.
Yeah, that's
Sports
right.
cards packed floor to ceiling.
In the closets, right? Yeah.
In all in the white, 800 count boxes, the 3200 count 4-row boxes, just packed and stacked in there. And I actually, before I did toys, I specialized more in toys now, but actually before I sold toys, I did sports cards, baseball cards. So I had a pretty good handle on what was there. And there's a lot of common stuff, but there was better boxes. So there was some decent stuff mixed in with the sports cards. It just took months of sorting.
There was a desk in that room, if I remember correctly. And when you open the desk, every drawer and every nook and cranny in the desk was full of porn.
Yeah.
So that was entertaining. And
he wasn't picky on his porn. It was guys, it was women, it was
a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity porn guy. Yeah.
So then we went into the kitchen. And again, nowhere for anybody to sit and have a meal, prepare a meal, anything like that. Every surface full, every cupboard, everything just chock full of stuff.
Didn't know there was an oven in there until we unburied the stuff that was piled on it.
So. No lie. Then we went upstairs. The upstairs, very narrow stairwell, very steep stairwell, if I remember correctly. The entire upper story full of books. Like, I don't remember much of anything else but books up there.
Books and some glassware. There was some glassware stashed in the sides, but it was books and a lot of porn books.
Yeah.
And more porn. He was an equal opportunity floor porn guy too. He had as much porn on the upstairs as he had downstairs.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, that's a lot of books to haul up those stairs, and we're going to have to haul all of them down those stairs. So we were like, oh my gosh, that's a job. That was nothing compared to the basement.
Yeah.
So we went into the basement with a lot of trepidation, because that is where the gentleman had passed away and had been laying. And so we were kind of expecting, to find something gruesome. And there really wasn't.
No.
But I think what was down there just made us both stand there and go, holy crap, because it was so chock full. And all around the walls of the basement were tennis ball tubes. So, like the clear tennis ball tubes that 3 tennis balls come in. It's just like a long plastic clear tube with like a pop top, kind of like a Pringles can. Thousands of tennis ball tubes stacked on top of each other all the way around all of the walls in the entire basement. And the things that were in them, there'd be
keychains in one, there'd be swizzle sticks in one,
eraser,
there'd be rocks. He had tennis ball containers full of rocks. I'm not sure what the plan was on those, but Hot Wheels. There was 100 tubes of tennis ball tubes with Hot Wheels crammed in them.
Pencils. I'm trying to think what else. They're just like so many weird little odds and endy.
Anything that you could think of that would fit in a tennis ball tube, he had it, and it was in tubes.
Yeah, pin back buttons, hair ties,
silverware.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, so much silverware. Yeah. I just
poker chips. They're talking about poker chips today.
Thousands.
Thousands and thousands of poker chips stacked in these tubes.
Yeah, thousands of poker chips. Trying to think what else we have. We have a lot of these items in a junk rack at our store now that we are still selling them. Yeah. And this was 4 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what are some of the other things in the junk rack that still came from there. Dice, their game pieces, like from games, Scrabble letters, anything he could categorize in a tennis ball tube was there. And I remember thinking, what kind of obsessive person, does this? Because he must have collected those items and then categorized them. And I asked his niece, I said, what is the deal? And she said, we have no idea, because we really didn't even have contact with him. So we really have no clue what that was all about.
Yeah, sadly, he was kind of a loner. That's why he laid there for as long as he did before anybody even found him.
Yeah. So sad situation, but just unbelievable amount of stuff in that house. So there were rooms that were full of glassware. There were boxes and boxes and boxes of china. I mean, hundreds of pieces of china in that basement. The boxes had gotten wet, so they were full of mold, tons of mold in that basement. So we quickly realized we were going to have to wear respirators when we were going down there because there was nowhere to crack a window, and we were going to have to haul everything up the stairs and out the door to get it out of the house. So that was the basement. Then we went up to the garage, and in the garage, we found where the tennis ball tubes had come from. There were boxes and boxes of tennis balls.
Yeah, I think there was probably close to 5 or 6,000 tennis balls in boxes. So he basically bought brand new tennis balls in the
By
tubes
the case.
by the case, emptied the balls out of the tube, put the balls in a banana box in the garage, and used the tubes for all his small trinkets. So, again, a little bit of odd situation there, but hey, we found that we were able to match the tennis balls with the tubes. And I think we donated those, didn't we? To
We
a
did to the
couple
high school.
high school
Yeah.
tennis teams.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
we called the high schools and said, "Hey, we have some brand new tennis balls we'd like to donate." And they said, "How many?" And we said, "Thousands." And they said, "Oh boy, we'll take a couple
Yeah.
hundred maybe."
Yeah.
So we had to farm those out to all the area high schools in town that were grateful to
I
get
think
those.
Wendy took some over to Humane Society even for
Yeah,
some of
for
the
the
dogs to
dogs.
play with. So
Yeah.
I think we were
Yeah.
giving them away even for dog
Yep.
play toys.
Yep. So we had all those tennis balls out in the garage, and then there were boxes and boxes in the garage of clothes. You remember that?
And rocks, more rocks.
And more rocks. That's right.
Yeah.
So the rocks we ended up just kind of dumping around the
Yeah.
for landscaping
Yeah, we
to get rid
landscaped the
of
house for them.
to get rid of those. And then the clothes, it was really weird because there'd be a box of clothes that would have a wide variety of sizes in it. There'd be little kids' clothes, grown-up clothes. I mean, it was just like from all over the place. And nobody really knows why he had all the boxes of clothes.
Didn't know if he just picked them up at rummage
It
sales
was
at leftovers or
so
what.
random. So
But
random.
yeah.
So we started doing that clean out. We said, yep, we'll take the clean out job because if nothing else, it was going to make a great story to tell later. And it was so full of stuff. We thought for sure there would be saleable items in there. And like I said, we are still selling the items like 4 years later. We started that job by trying to farm out the various things like Rick was talking about the tennis balls and the books. We contacted the library, and the library in town at that time was not taking donations. So we really had no choice but to get rid of all the books. And it was such a tight timeline, middle of winter, so labor intensive. And so many of the books were actually illicit books that no library was going to want anyway. They weren't appropriate. We ended up just backing our dump trailer in underneath one of the windows and opening a window and just tossing boxes and boxes of books out the window into the dump trailer. It took us almost an entire day with like 4 people to do that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a long time.
And we kept going to the dump. So I would have staff doing that, and I would drive the dump trailer back and forth to the dump. And at our local landfill here in La Crosse County, when you pull up, they ask you, where is this coming from? Because our landfill serves, I don't know, probably like 10 communities.
Yeah, it's the
And
whole
so,
county. I mean,
yeah.
it's the whole county, but they need to know what municipality the stuff comes out of
Yeah.
within the county.
Yeah. So I'd say, this came from La Crosse and dot to dot to dot. And they'd ask what it was because they have different piles for different types of recycling at the landfill. And I remember pulling up that time, and the lady said, "What's in the trailer?" And I said, "Well, near as I can figure, about 2 tons of porn." And she just looked at me and thought I was kidding. And I'm like, "No, sadly, I'm quite serious, actually." so so I took that, dumped it, went back and would refill the trailer again. And I kept running loads back and forth all day long while everybody was sorting. And
Well, in the meantime, we were actually hauling stuff with the enclosed trailer and the van to our warehouse. That because this was such a tight timeline, we didn't really have the time to sort a lot of this. The sorting we were doing was if it's damaged, moldy, wet stuff, something like that, that went to the dumpster because they were just not worth salvaging. But if we didn't even know what it was just grab the whole box, put it in the trailer, and we'll have to sort it out
later
at the warehouse,
Yeah.
at a later date. Because thankfully this one was close enough to the warehouse, so it wasn't too bad for making trips back and forth. But so we had two trailers and a van going at the same time, loading and hauling
and
stuff on
probably
this house.
5 staff at any given time.
At
They're
least
helping.
probably.
And we had high school kids, we had friends, we had, they weren't people that we had on staff on a regular basis. It was basically anybody who would come and help. So by the time we were done hauling banana boxes, and we were going around to our local Quick Trips and getting as many boxes as we could too at that time to put stuff in. By the time we were done, the pile of boxes in our warehouse stacked up was the size of a small RV, height wise, wide,
a big
a big RV.
like a Class A motorhome
Okay.
size. I still have a picture of it. I think on my phone from up above in the man lift, showing the size of it down below.
Yeah.
And it's a Class A motorhome size.
We'll try to upload that in the show notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really, really big pile of stuff that ended up taking up space in our warehouse for quite a while before we could sort it
Well,
out.
because it was winter, like you said, so we couldn't just get out there and work and sort a lot because it was so cold here in Wisconsin. So that
Yeah.
pile sat there for a while until probably spring when we really got a chance to sort a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were, hauling all that back and forth. I was doing a lot of running. We were doing a lot of unloading. We had several estate sales from those items, if I remember correctly. One of the times we were unloading, I went home that night and I happened to be getting in the shower and I looked down and I had a huge bulge coming out of my abdomen. And I looked at Rick and I said, I don't think that's supposed to be there. I think I'm going to call the clinic. And I ended up going into the clinic the next day and told him, yep, I'll be right back. I'm just going to run over and have them look at what this is. I must have bumped it on something yesterday or something when we were unloading that van. And the next phone call he got from me was me saying, yeah, so little problem. They're rushing me into emergency surgery and I think you should probably come to the hospital. So that was a little expensive and a little nerve-wracking. I ended up having a hernia that was compromising some blood flow in one of my arteries. And I was in surgery for
It was a long time. I
8
know.
hours, I think you
I
said.
think I got the initial call at noon. I got down there as soon as I could, and it was probably 9:30, 10 o'clock before I think I went home for the night.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
that was a wild experience.
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
She was going to be back by about 10 a.m. or whatever. And at noon, I got the call that they were taking her into surgery. So yeah, we booked on down to the hospital.
So one of the wildest cleanouts we've done by far, one of the weirdest cleanouts we've done by far, and one of the most expensive cleanouts
Mhm.
we've done by far by the time we got the hospital bill.
But on the plus side, the people at the dump still remember you right to the pound of the amount of porn you brought in. They got it recorded on a little notebook by the side of the scale shack, and they know exactly the weight of that
Yeah.
porn that you brought in that day.
Yeah. So here's the side story on that. So my friend Sarah, that took over our estate sale business that you will hear from in some of our episodes on this podcast, I'm sure. Sarah was going to the dump. That was probably 2 months ago.
Not too long ago.
She was going to the dump and she called me after she left with a load that she was hauling in from a clean out. And she goes, hey, I have a funny story. And she knows nothing about this clean out we had done that we've just been telling you about because it was years earlier and it never
We
really
didn't even
came
know
up.
her at that time.
Yeah. So she goes, hey, I have a funny story. I was just at the dump. And I'm like, okay, this better be funny considering it started with, I was just at the dump. And she goes, so I asked the ladies in the scale shack, what's the weirdest thing anybody's ever brought in? And they said it was 2,000 pounds of porn. Can you imagine? And I said, actually, Sarah, it was 1,980 pounds of porn. And I still have the receipt right here.
Yeah. So Sarah didn't realize it was us when she was telling us the funny story, but that made it even funnier then because like I said, the scale shack women remembered. And that was, probably 4 or 5 years before that. So yeah,
Yeah,
they had a
so-
little notepad of that written down. That's as the oddest thing that they've seen.
Yeah. So that is what we are known for here in this community.
Yeah.
Our 1,980 pounds of porn.
Yeah, great. Well, at least from just the two people in the scale shack. I'm not sure everybody else in the
that's true.
community knows that.
That's true.
So,
Anyway, so that's what we have for you today. Thanks for listening. If you have any friends that you're riding around with that think you're silly for picking up stuff on the side of the road, you might want to get new friends. They're taking up valuable space in your car that you could be loading in curb fines with. Thanks for listening.